Hi, Brian. So now we're getting down to the meat and potatoes of it all. This chapter should be of particular interest to you because it's about how to maintain an effective website. You're going to hear a little wind in the background. It's a little windy today here out in Eastern Oregon where I'm taping this, but hopefully it won't interfere at all. I think the main thing to understand about a website is that a website should be part of an overall marketing strategy. And so if you can't explain how it fits into an overall marketing strategy for your business, then you're going to be in trouble from the beginning. This is outside the text. This is from an article that I wrote actually in the 90s when the internet was taken off. The C's of a web presence. I changed that slightly, but a website is constructed and part of your overall strategy in your business for different reasons. First and foremost, it's a communication tool. And I have communication down there. I was listed them by recall, but first and foremost, it's a communication tool for most business. You know, it can be a billboard to explain your products, your services, and that is really the foundation around which the internet and the World Wide Web developed. It was always first and foremost a communication tool. It was commercialized with the advent of the World Wide Web in the 90s. And from that came commerce, you know, the ability to sell stuff online. And everybody says they want to sell stuff online, but the fact is it's not appropriate for lots of businesses to sell stuff on the web because it creates a whole different need within your overall organization. You need different kinds of expertise, people assigned to it. There's all kinds of expectations anymore from your customers if you're going to sell online in terms of expediency, reliability, so on and so forth. From a customer's perspective, I'll run from the top down now. From a customer's perspective, they go online because your site is because going online is convenient as opposed to other venues that they have to retrieve information or to purchase, whatever the case may be. They also assume some cost savings when they go online. And from the business's perspective, we have a web presence in many cases to save money, reduce our costs. Those are two different perspectives. One is from the business perspective, the other is from the customer perspective. So the customer wants to save money on their products. The businesses, in many cases, wants to reduce the expenses of running their business. Another reason that people go online is this formation of communities. That's very key as far as social networking is concerned. People form communities for a number of different reasons. Customers also go online to not just to save money when they buy stuff, but to expand their choices that they have, whether that's somebody else to buy from, broader access to different kinds of products, of course. And then finally, from going back to this perspective, the internet and the World Wide Web and a web presence in general can be extremely valuable and beneficial to a business as far as customer relationship management is concerned. So from the text perspective then, what are your objectives in setting up a website? It could go back to the C's that I just went through. Reduce expenses, better communication with your customers, greater service to your customers. And so one thing that businesses want to do is increase sales revenues. And they want to build their visibility and their branding. That's another objective that the web is. That kind of fits in my opinion, to communication. That it can act as a billboard in a sense. They look to advertise. That goes back to that's similar to increasing visibility, and it fits again into the whole communication issue. Generate sales leads. That's all about commerce. You're trying to, for those that are trying to sell online, fit. You want to retain and grow your customers. That fits into CRM. You want to provide cost savings. We talked about that. Build an online community. So these are all things that fit in to my C's in one form or another. And why are we interested in that as far as a business? And the answer is it kind of strikes at the heart of what a loyal customer is, and more people that shop online have their places that they like to do business. So multi-channel shoppers that pursue certain products or certain brands tend to purchase more frequently. They make larger purchases. And more people prefer internet shopping. Every year it grows as a % of overall purchases in the retail industry. And business to business as well. So there's a process that's good to follow when you're thinking about laying out your website and what purposes it's going to serve as far as your overall business model is concerned. And the first thing that you want to think about is establishing the objectives of the site. Because again, back to the C's, it's not just about commerce. In fact, for most businesses, it's about communication. It's about providing information about your company and your products. For some kind of business items, business-related items of a technical nature, it may be about providing things like technical manuals and frequently asked questions. Again, it's a communication tool. So when you think about laying out this website, ask yourself, why am I doing this to begin with? What problems, issues do I hope to solve by having a web presence? And again, it's almost always more complex than simply saying, I want to sell stuff online. Next would be identify and describe your target market. And you can't really identify your target market until you know what your objectives are going to be. Because if selling is an objective, then your target market becomes existing and potential customers. If your objectives are purely communicative in nature, then really it becomes of value mostly for your existing customers around issues, again, like policies and procedure, supporting information, if it's a technical, if it's the DMV, maybe it's primarily videos that are nested in the website that are informative in nature. If it's it's your website of selling vacation packages and related products, then you could have a lot of different target markets for different kinds of products, or you could zero in on a couple niche markets like high-end travel to the South Pacific. You want to design the site content and navigation structure. You want to keep it as simple as possible. One thing that they've learned since the very beginning when they started having online sites is that simple is better. Sort of the keep it simple, stupid issue that people don't like. Fancy stuff that takes seconds to more to load. Just get into the site, display what it is that the site is intended to primarily project, and then have an easy navigation process through the site. The site should make sense. Site different areas in the site should be threaded together logically. Before you ever, if you were doing this for real, you want to run tests on your site before you ever made it public. So you would post the site, lock people out, but maybe get friends and family and others to test it so that you could identify all the bugs in it. Then fix the site, make it public, and then begin to measure and evaluate what elements, aspects, areas of the site are most effective or most popular. And then simply make adjustments over time. So the 6 and 7 are ongoing issues. And then, as is ultimately, once you get it up, as is stating objectives. Those will change over time and should be reviewed on a So which of the following should drive website design, business goals, or target audience, or both? Those are steps 1 and 2, and they interrelate so closely that I would say the answer to that is C. I like this figure. I kept it in this particular lecture simply because I think it gives you a really good overview of how to lay out your site before you ever design it. Wireframes are a great thing to use because most of the templates that you use in designing a website are fixed around object size. And so where you have on the right hand item where you have it laid out like that, and then 2 adjacent columns to the right, those are sizes objectively that you have to work with. So you use those to use pictures, to point pictures. So a great way to do a wireframe, long story short, is to draw an object on a piece of paper to scale, and then lay out how you want it before you ever, and you can move around before you ever enter it into your template. It saves you a lot of time because you can see what it looks like before you ever enter it into the template, which is a good thing to do. And then this is a good little slide as well, something you can review. These 4 key dimensions, value, navigation, presentation, and trust, are just dimensions to your website that are important to consider in the design process, in the layout process, and on an ongoing interface with your customer. What does a website cost? They're not cheap. Even with the tools that you have now, where you can essentially lay it out via a template and be hosted by somebody like GoDaddy. Unless it's just extremely simple, it's not cheap to set one of these up. I mean, it's easy to spend a couple thousand anyway, especially when you start integrating features into it, like being able to purchase online or take orders and that sort of thing. Not only is it complicated, but if you're working with a GoDaddy, you are quickly going to have to engage with one of their people on staff in order to effect those kinds of features. And finally, here is a summary. I'm not going to go through it. I'll let you go through it, but it is what it says it is. A good website design summary, good little slide from the textbook. It takes the customer into account. It's easy to navigate. It flows easily, and it has utility. It's usable, I mean, for some intended purpose. For example, if, let's say you want to sell on, let's say it's a billboard, it should take all those primary features into account in that circle. And if you're going to sell stuff online, it just simply has to, end of the day, function properly. So always something to keep in mind, and what expertise is needed to design it and to operate it once it's going.